I'm a never Trump guy. I never liked him.
It makes you think that at a fundamental level, this is sort of a he said, she said, right? And at the end of the day, do you believe Donald Trump, who always tells the truth? Just kidding. Or do you believe that woman on that tape?
I cannot stand Trump because I think he's a fraud. Well, I think he's a total fraud that is exploiting these people, who is a total fraud.
Like I said, I agree with you on Trump because I don't think that he's the person. I don't think he actually cares about folks.
So J.D. Vance is out here pretending to be America's moral compass. But this week he couldn't find North if it was tattooed on a Chick-fil-A wrapper. You know, this guy went from writing Hillbilly Elegy, the book about escaping poverty, to becoming the vice president of the very system he said was broken. It's like writing a diet book and then opening an all-you-can-eat buffet. He flew to Europe for the Munich Security Conference, gave this speech about how Europe is afraid of its voters, which is hilarious because back home he's afraid of his own.
Vice President Maybelline was making the rounds, attempting to defend his boss and the chairman of the FCC with a new fairy tale even a 5-year-old wouldn't believe.
Celebrities are rallying to his cause, saying this is a First Amendment assault being carried out by the FCC, Brendan Carr, and by the President of the United States himself. And to that, you say?
Well, there are two things. First of all, I'd like them to tell me exactly what Brendan Carr did to have Jimmy Kimmel taken off the air, because number one, he is currently on the air, and to the extent that he isn't in certain stations, it's because he's not funny and because his ratings aren't very good.
I have some good news for you, J-Dog. We're back on all the stations.
The crowd is still getting comfortable. People are finding their seats, checking their phones, and you can hear that soft theater buzz in the background. The band starts getting quieter, slowly fading out, and then Jimmy Kimmel walks on stage with that same familiar look on his face, like he already knows exactly where the joke is going before he even says a word. He taps his cue cards on the desk, looks straight into the camera, and calmly says he is officially back on every station again. And the whole room just explodes. It is loud, it is instant, and it feels less like normal applause and more like everybody letting out the same breath at once, like some big rumor finally fell apart right in front of them. Then Kimmel does not waste a second. He completely switches the energy, turns his focus to J.D. Vance, and hits him with a nickname so sharp and weirdly specific that it sounds like it could be printed on a makeup box. Vice President Maybelline.
He acts like he's out there defending the working class, but the second Trump frowns, JD changes his entire belief system faster than a Tesla stock price. And remember, this is the same JD Vance who once called Trump America's moral disaster. He literally said Trump was cultural heroin. Then he met him, and now he's his dealer. He's out there pushing the same stuff he used to warn people about.
There is definitely an element of Donald Trump's support that has its basis in racism or xenophobia.
I think there's a chance, if I feel like Trump has a really good chance of winning, that I might have to hold my nose and vote for Hillary Clinton. I think that I'm going to vote third party because I can't stomach Trump. I think that he's noxious and is leading the white working class to a very dark place.
And the joke lands in that weird way comedy sometimes does, where it does not just hit the person, it hits the whole image they have been trying to build. It is not just a simple insult. It feels like it pulls something out into the open. You can almost picture someone in a communications office knocking over their coffee. Like, wait, did he really just say that? And somewhere else, there is probably a senator sitting completely still, acting like the joke did not get to him, while secretly typing out an angry response he is definitely going to delete before posting. Meanwhile, all across social media, this familiar political figure, the one usually framed as the loyal ally of the 47th president, suddenly does not look like the strategist in the room anymore. He looks like part of the joke itself. And the more he tries to shift the conversation back to ratings, the more he actually keeps the moment alive. That is why this blew up so quickly, because it was not random at all. It happened in 3 clear stages.
Interrupt your bullshit. Go on.
There's something else that's important here, Laura, which is that these broadcast companies, ABC, NBC, CBS, they enjoy the public airwaves because they serve the public interest. So I actually think that we should be having a conversation about whether these companies are serving the public interest. That's actually totally separate from the Jimmy Kimmel issue because nothing happened to him. He's currently on the air, and to the extent that he's not, it's because advertisers don't like him because his ratings aren't very good.
My ratings aren't very good. Last time I checked, your ratings were somewhere between a hair in your salad and chlamydia. In 3.5 years, I'm not the one who's going to be doing mascara tutorials on YouTube.
He spent part of his week warning Americans that dating apps are more destructive than artificial intelligence. Really? AI is writing your speeches, buddy. You're worried about Tinder when the robots are learning how to lie better than you? He says online dating is tearing apart traditional families. The guy works for a man who has 3 marriages and 5 kids who all look like they share one Wi-Fi password. You want to lecture America about stable homes? You work for the Trump family, not the Brady Bunch.
The first part started right before Brooklyn Week, when J.D. Vance showed up at Friendly Studios and publicly hinted that Jimmy Kimmel's short time away had something to do with bad ratings, saying it like he was making some confident, expert call instead of just throwing out a guess. He also leaned into this idea that Kimmel owed apologies to people he claimed had been treated unfairly or slandered. And the way he said it, completely serious and straight-faced, made the whole thing feel very intentional. Then came step 2. Kimmel returned under the lights, and the energy in the room already felt sharper than usual. He made it clear right away that he was back on every station, and almost immediately after that, he turned his attention straight to Vance and dropped one brutal line: Vice President Maybelline. It was the kind of joke that felt permanent the second it landed.
We wind up with a president and a vice president who wear more makeup than Kylie Jenner and Lady Gaga combined. A lot of pressure on J.D. Vance tonight. J.D. Vance hasn't been under a microscope like this since his wife asked him why the couch was so sticky. But Trump had good advice. He told him, just have fun. And you know what? It seems like he did.
I want to answer the question, but I want to actually give an introduction to myself a little bit because I recognize a lot of Americans don't know who either one of us are.
That's how you get the single cat ladies back on your side. You know, in some ways, you can't help but you kind of feel sympathy for J.D. Vance having to defend Donald Trump, who he himself openly denounced. It's kind of like being Diddy's defense attorney, you know?
The reason Kimmel's line worked so well is because it was not just a basic criticism. It took a whole image and squeezed it into a few words. It pointed at the performance, the focus on appearance, the carefully polished toughness for the cameras, and that constant need to look calm and in control, even when what is underneath feels shaky. The nickname almost worked like a mirror, and the uncomfortable part was how fast it reflected something back that people could not really ignore. Then, when he followed it with another joke about the whole cosmetic-style presentation, the audience started putting it together in real time. The message became pretty clear. This was not really about normal policy debate anymore. It was about image, packaging, and what happens when that carefully built packaging starts cracking under public attention.
JD talks about family values while backing a president who spends more time golfing than parenting. He says men need to reclaim masculinity. Yeah, by all means, tell that to your boss, the man whose spray tan wipes off on the American flag. He's made himself the mascot of the forgotten working class, except the only thing he remembers is which billionaire is writing the campaign check this week. Every photo op he does has him in a barn wearing flannel talking about coal jobs, while the fine print says, made possible by Peter Thiel. The man's political soul is sponsored content.
One of Kimmel's most underrated strengths is how calm and controlled his delivery really is. Even when the joke is sharp, he does not need to yell, push too hard, or explain every little thing until it loses the punch. He just sets up the quote, adds one clean line of commentary, and then lets the room sit with it. That silence does a lot of the work for him. It is almost like the joke keeps cooking after he has already said it, and the impact gets stronger a few seconds later. That is why some of his moments stick around longer than the usual late-night reactions that people laugh at once and forget. On this night, he let Vance's own framing hang in the air just long enough for the audience to feel it, with words like bad ratings and political spin echoing in their heads. He did not turn it into a long argument. He simply said he was back on all stations, and somehow that one line was enough to shift the whole mood.
Both candidates were pretty darn polite to each other.
First of all, Tim just said something that I agree with. I agree, and I actually think I agree with you. I actually agree with Tim Walz. I agree with a lot of what Senator Vance said. Governor, I agree with you. I agree with that. And I think that Governor Walz and I actually probably agreed.
Well, Trump is not going to like that at all. You're in a lot of trouble, JD. I was kind of hoping they'd ask the candidates like some fun questions. Like, you know, they used to do that. Like, is a hot dog a sandwich? And then JD Vance would stare into the camera and say, when you're from Haiti, any dog can be a sandwich. But they didn't. There was no. They could have used a lot more talk about cats and dog eating.
And every time he opens his mouth about culture, it's a new episode of Things Nobody Asked. One week it's dating apps, the next it's birth control, the next it's women being too career-focused. He's like the cranky uncle at Thanksgiving who thinks feminism is a weather pattern. Then there's his big claim that America's in moral decline because people don't go to church enough. You know what else causes moral decline? Electing a guy who tried to overthrow democracy. But sure, tell me more about how Bumble is ruining society. He says he wants to stand up to global elites. Really? You flew to Munich in a private jet to say that, buddy? That's like yelling down with yachts from the deck of your own. J.D. Vance is what happens when populism goes to finishing school.
That one line about being back carried way more weight than it seemed to at first. It did not feel defensive, and it definitely did not sound like someone trying to dodge criticism. It felt more like Kimmel taking the whole space back and turning what was supposed to be a hit against him into a moment that actually made him more visible. So when JD Vance reacted so strongly afterward, it made more sense. Because getting hit with a nickname that sticks is not just about being laughed at for a few seconds. It is about permanence. That is what makes it uncomfortable. It is short enough for people to repeat easily, but specific enough to keep coming back every time your name gets mentioned. You can push back against policies, statements, or arguments, but it is much harder to fight a label once the public has already grabbed onto it.
Last night he posted an announcement. He said, I will be doing a personal play-by-play of the debate tomorrow between the brilliant J.D. Vance and the highly inarticulate tampon Tim Walz. I hope that cognitively challenged lion Kamala Harris will be listening so that she can again show the world how she will make up false facts and stories. I will be commenting on what is going on. Watch Truth Social tomorrow night. Watch Truth Social.
He wants to be seen as the people's champion, but he speaks like he's auditioning to narrate a documentary called The Death of Irony. And let's not forget, when the shutdown hit, he was silent while millions of Americans were wondering if they'd get food stamps. He didn't fight for them. He was too busy tweeting about real patriots and woke tech overlords. You know who cares about SNAP benefits? The people you wrote about in your book, JD, remember them? The ones who can't afford your lecture tour ticket?
That is exactly how the internet grabs these moments and runs with them. Once a phrase like Maybelline gets out there, it does not just stay in one clip. It starts popping up everywhere, even in places you do not expect. So now, every time Vance shows up on camera looking serious, people almost automatically hear that reference in their heads. And the timing mattered a lot too. Vance made those comments while rumors were already floating around about Kimmel's status, so it probably felt like an easy shot to take. But that is the funny thing about assuming someone is fading out. A lot of the time, that is exactly when they come back even stronger. Kimmel's response was not messy or desperate. It was calm, controlled, and straight to the point. And by simply saying he was back on all stations, he wiped away the whole idea that he was disappearing in the first place.
Every time he gets on stage, he tries to sound tough. He says things like, We're fighting for real Americans. Yeah, the real Americans who live in his imagination, the ones who still think the earth is flat and vaccines are witchcraft. J.D. Vance wants you to believe he's the next great conservative thinker, but he's really just Trump with a library card. He's got all the bluster, half the charisma, and none of the self-awareness. You can tell he thinks he's the smartest guy in the room, but the only reason he looks that way is because the rest of his party keeps setting the bar underground. Look, JD, I'll give you credit. It's not easy to sell out your own book.
From there, Kimmel brought the focus right back to Vance and wrapped the whole thing up with almost surgical timing, leaving barely any room for the moment to drag on or get messy. Even the crowd's reaction after that made it feel like everybody understood the peak had already happened. But the bigger picture is that Kimmel was not just answering one random comment. He was pushing back against a wider style of political messaging, where satire gets treated like a personal attack, and criticism suddenly gets framed like censorship. That tension between entertainment and politics is exactly what made the whole thing blow up so fast. And it also showed how quickly the media cycle can turn personality-driven commentary into a full headline-level event, especially when the reaction to the joke becomes just as important as the joke itself.
On the biggest night of J.D. Vance's career, his running mate, he's telling his followers, watch me on Truth Social commenting on it. And here is some video of Mar-a-Lago watching tonight from home.
Now, the person closest to them, to Donald Trump.
Kimmel's approach really comes down to two things: precision and timing. He does not overdo it. He uses the actual quote, adds just enough commentary, and then gives the audience room to sit with what was just said instead of rushing them into the next punchline. That pacing is a big reason why certain lines stay in people's heads longer than anyone expects. And honestly, J.D. Vance's reaction is what proved the joke had landed. When a public figure responds that fast and that emotionally, it usually means the comment hit somewhere sensitive. Trying to frame the joke as bullying only made more people pay attention to it. And that is the irony here. The quickest way to keep a punchline alive is to react to it loudly, on the same stage where it was first delivered.
I'm Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. The mainstream media, they want you to think that I'm weird. They call me creepy, cringy, awkward, that I give people something called the ick. They want you to think that I can't order a simple donut. But that's ridiculous. Follow me.
Hello?
Hi.
Okay. How long you worked here?
A year?
Okay. Donut.
That is how one line stops being just a joke and turns into something that sticks inside political commentary. It becomes part of a bigger story, something people keep bringing up again and again, even when they are not talking about the original moment anymore. Kimmel's short pause after the joke mattered too, because it made the whole thing feel finished instead of forced. He did not try to explain it too much or pile on extra meaning, he just let the silence sit there. And that silence basically told the audience, yeah, you already got it. That kind of restraint is why the moment felt so deliberate. And once the reaction calmed down, it was obvious the line had already done exactly what it was supposed to do.
It takes talent to write a story about fighting for your community and end it by joining the guy who mocked that same community on national TV. That's a full circle moment. It's like if the guy from the Lorax bought a chainsaw company. So congrats, J.D. Vance, the man who went from voice of the people to ventriloquist dummy of the powerful. You're proof that hypocrisy isn't dead. It just got a podcast.
Some viewers might say moments like this do not really matter compared to actual policy debates. And honestly, there is some truth to that. But the thing is, public perception is not shaped only by laws, speeches, or political details. A lot of it comes from culture, from framing, from the images people attach to certain figures. once a politician becomes connected to a specific joke or a certain kind of image, that starts changing how people hear everything else they say. And when performance and presentation go unchecked, they can easily start taking up more space than the substance underneath. That is why moments like this catch fire, even when they seem light or silly on the surface.
Put inflation down to practically zero. And all of the groceries and all of the eggs and all of the things that you've been hearing about, they're back down. They're way down from where they were. I did something in 4 months that nobody's seen. And I have to say, in 4 months, and I said it before, and everyone's talking about it all over the world, we've got the hottest country anywhere in the world right now. We're the only country anybody's even talking about.
It's true, but they're talking about us in the same way people talk about the Diddy trial. It's with curiosity, disbelief, and revulsion.
Comments that you've made about Donald Trump. You've said, I'm a never Trump guy, never liked him, terrible candidate, idiot if you voted for him, might be America's Hitler, might be a cynical a-hole, cultural heroine, noxious and reprehensible.
Trump is a really bad candidate, and frankly, I think a really bad person.
Kimmel has built a style that is not really about going head-to-head with someone in a loud way. It is more about breaking the moment apart and showing people what is actually sitting underneath it. He does not usually need some long, dramatic argument. He just takes the situation, cuts it down to something simple, and makes it instantly recognizable. And in this case, he took a whole public image and turned it into a punchline people could remember right away and repeat without even thinking. At the same time, there is a bigger background here too, because late-night shows keep getting pulled into political conversations by public officials as part of these wider culture debates. That is what makes moments like this feel bigger than a normal entertainment segment. It isn't just a joke anymore. It becomes part of the whole political media cycle.
It's illegal under the Logan Act for private citizens to engage in foreign policy that undercuts America. But this J.D. Vance, before he made up the Haitians eating dogs story, he tweeted, "Trump makes people I care about afraid. Immigrants, Muslims, etc. Because of this, I find him reprehensible. God wants better of us." I agree with the statement you no longer agree with. Of course, he deleted those tweets once he realized he could be Trump's running mate.
If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to America Facticity for more breaking news and late night truth. And let me know in the comments, what's worse, J.D. Vance's speeches or his dating app paranoia? Because honestly, I think both might be swiping left on America.
In the end, the audience reaction made it pretty obvious that this moment had already become bigger than the studio. It had taken on a life of its own, and even the people trying to brush it off were only making it more visible. That is why it felt like more than just one late-night segment. It pulled together the performance, the reaction, and the way the public interpreted all of it into one ongoing cycle. And once something like that starts moving, especially online, it becomes really hard to slow it down or stop it from spreading even further.
As civil as the debate was, the troll-in-chief was not. He didn't like the fact that Tim Walz uses the word folks. He wrote, "Folks, Tampon Tim stealing Crooked Joe's signature catchphrase. Sad." He also didn't like the idea that Tim Walz was taking notes. Why Walz is taking so many notes, never seen a candidate take more. He needs the notes to keep his brain intact. And if that isn't the pumpkin calling the basketball orange, I don't know what is.